think you know fairy tales. Think again. You might picture Disney castles and singing forest creatures when you're tucking in for the night. But the original stories, the real ones, were far darker, stranger, and frankly, a lot more interesting. Welcome back to our little corner of calm. Tonight, we aren't just reading bedtime stories. We're cracking open the vault of the Brothers Grimm. It's going to be cozy, yes, but also a fair bit twisted. So, pull the duvet up tight, take a deep breath, and let's step together into the shadows of the Black Forest. Before we begin, we need to set the scene. Picture Germany in the late 1700s. It wasn't exactly a picnic. There was political chaos and war everywhere. In the middle of this, you had two brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, living in the small town of Hanau. They were obsessed with saving the stories that ordinary people, peasants, villagers, travelers were telling each other. These weren't written down, they were oral traditions in danger of vanishing forever. The brothers traveled around, listening and meticulously writing everything down. When they finally published their collection, Children's and Household Tales, in 1812, the reaction was mixed. People were actually shocked. "These are for children?" they asked. They were gruesome, violent, and often incredibly bleak. Of course, decades later, Walt Disney came along and polished off the rough edges, giving us the sanitized versions we know today. But tonight, we're ignoring the polish. We are going back to the source, the raw, unfiltered magic. So, settle in and let these timeless, sometimes terrifying tales wash over you. Let's start with one that is properly grim, a story about longing and some very dark cooking. The Juniper Tree. Long ago, a rich and pious couple loved each other dearly but had no children, which caused them great sorrow. One winter day, the wife stood under a juniper tree in their courtyard, peeling an apple. She cut her finger, and as drops of blood fell onto the snow, she wished intensely for a child, as red as blood and as white as snow. Months passed. The seasons turned, and the juniper tree blossomed. After eating the juniper berries and becoming ill, she knew her time was short. She asked to be buried beneath that very tree. She gave birth to a son white as snow and red as blood and died of joy when she saw him. The husband eventually remarried and had a daughter named Marlena. The new wife, however, looked at her stepson with pure hatred, seeing him as an obstacle to her own daughter's inheritance. The evil in her heart grew until one day, when her daughter asked for an apple from a heavy chest, a dark impulse overtook the mother. She denied her daughter, waiting for the stepson to return. When he arrived, she sweetly offered him an apple from the chest. As the boy leaned in to take it, the evil took over completely. She slammed the heavy iron lid down with such force that it severed the boy's head, sending it tumbling among the apples. Panic set in. To cover her horrific crime, she tied his head back onto his neck with a white scarf and sat his body by the door with the apple in his hand. When little Marlene couldn't get her brother to answer her, the mother told her to box his ears. Marlena did, and his head fell off. Terrified, Marlena thought she had killed him. The mother then did the unthinkable. She chopped the boy's body into pieces and cooked him into a stew. The oblivious father arrived home and ate the stew greedily, remarking on how delicious it was. while poor Marlene gathered her brother's bones from under the table, weeping into a silk scarf. She laid the bundle of bones under the juniper tree. The tree began to move magically. A mist rose, fire burned, and a magnificent bird flew out, singing beautifully. The bird flew around the country, landing on the houses of a goldsmith, a shoemaker, and a miller. To each, it sang a haunting song about its murder. My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister Marlene gathered my bones. The bird was so enchanting that the tradesmen gave it gifts to hear the song again. A golden chain, a pair of red shoes, and a heavy millstone. The bird flew back home. The father, hearing the song, felt incredibly happy. The mother felt a dreadful burning fear. Marlene just wept. The bird dropped the golden chain around the father's neck and threw the red shoes down to Marlene. But when the wicked stepmother ran outside to see what was happening, the bird dropped the heavy millstone straight onto her head, crushing her completely. Amid smoke and flames, the little brother stood there, alive once more. The remaining three sat down to dinner, finally at peace. Next, we have a classic, but one that is far deadlier than the cartoon version you might know. Little Snow White. A queen, sewing by an ebony window in winter, pricks her finger and wishes for a child as white as snow, red as blood, and black as the wood frame. She gets her wish, a daughter named Snow White, but the queen dies in childbirth. A year later, the king marries a beautiful but pathologically vain woman who possesses a magic mirror. Every day she asks, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" And the mirror always replies that she is. But Snow White grows up, and at 7 years old, the mirror declares her the fairest. Consumed by envy, the queen orders a huntsman to take Snow White into the woods, kill her, and bring back her lungs and liver as proof. The huntsman, pitying the beautiful child, lets her go and instead kills a young boar, bringing its organs to the queen. The wicked woman has the cook boil them and eats them, believing them to be Snow White's. Snow White flees through the terrifying forest until she finds a tiny, neat cottage with 7 small beds. Exhausted, she falls asleep. The inhabitants, 7 dwarfs, who mine for ore, return home. They are stunned by her beauty and let her sleep. In the morning, they agreed to let her stay if she keeps house for them, warning her sternly never to let anyone in, for her stepmother will soon know she is alive. Indeed, the mirror tells the queen that Snow White is still fairest beyond the mountains. Furiously, the queen disguises herself as an old peddler selling colorful laces. Snow White, naive, lets her in. The queen laces Snow White's new bodice so tightly that the girl can breathe and collapses as if dead. The dwarfs return just in time to cut the lace and revive her. The queen tries again. Using witchcraft, she creates a poisoned comb and disguises herself as a different old woman. Snow White, tempted by the pretty comb, lets her in again. The moment the comb touches her hair, the poison takes effect, and she falls unconscious. The dwarfs return and pull the comb out, saving her a second time. Mad with rage, the queen creates the ultimate weapon, a poisoned apple. It's artfully made white on one side, bright red on the other. Only the red half is poisoned. Disguised as a peasant, she offers it to Snow White. The girl hesitates, so the queen eats the safe white half herself to prove it isn't poisoned. Snow White takes a bite of the red half and drops down dead. This time, the dwarfs cannot wake her. Heartbroken, they place her in a transparent glass coffin on a mountain, for she still looks alive, with rosy cheeks. A prince happens by, falls in love with the beautiful corpse, and begs the dwarfs for the coffin. As his servants carry it away, one stumbles over a bush. The jolt dislodges the piece of poisoned apple from Snow White's throat, and she wakes up. They plan a grand wedding. The wicked stepmother is invited, and the mirror tells her the young queen is now the fairest. When she arrives and sees Snow White alive, she is paralyzed with terror. As punishment, iron shoes are heated in burning coals and placed before her. She is forced to put on the red-hot shoes and dance until she falls down dead. Let's move on to another famous one, a story about straying from the path. Little Red Cap. There was once a sweet young girl, loved by everyone, especially her grandmother, who gave her a little cap of red velvet that she wore everywhere. One day, her mother gave her a piece of cake and a bottle of wine to take to her ailing grandmother out in the woods. "Stay on the path," her mother warned, "and don't go peeking into corners." Entering the woods, Little Red Cap met a wolf, innocent to the ways of wicked beasts. She wasn't afraid. The wolf politely asked where she was going, and she told him exactly where her grandmother's house was, under the 3 large oak trees. The sly wolf thought she would be a tasty morsel. He distracted her, pointing out the beautiful flowers and singing birds in the woods. Tempted, Red Cap left the path to gather a bouquet for her grandmother, wandering deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house, mimicked Red Cap's voice to get in, and promptly devoured the old woman. He then put on her clothes, climbed into her bed, and drew the curtains. When Red Cap finally arrived, she was surprised to find the door open. The house felt strange. Approaching the bed, she questioned her grandmother's odd appearance. "What big ears you have! What big eyes you have! What big hands you have! And finally, what a horribly big mouth you have! All the better to eat you with," roared the wolf, leaping from the bed and swallowing poor Red Cap in one gulp. Satisfied, the wolf fell into a loud, snoring sleep. A passing huntsman heard the noise and went to investigate. Finding the wolf, he realized it might have eaten the grandmother. Instead of shooting it, he took scissors and sliced open the sleeping wolf's belly. Out popped Little Red Cap, crying about how dark it was inside. Followed by the living grandmother, they quickly filled the wolf's empty stomach with large stones and sewed him back up. When the wolf awoke and tried to run, the weight of the stones collapsed him and he fell down dead. Later, it said that another wolf tried the same trick, but this time Little Red Cap stayed on the path. She and her grandmother locked the door against him when the wolf climbed onto the roof to wait for Red Cap to leave. The grandmother had Red Cap filled the stone water trough outside with water, used to boil sausages. The delicious smell lured the wolf to the edge of the roof. He slipped, fell into the trough, and drowned. She had learned her lesson well. Now a story about disguise, loyalty, and a very clever lion The 12 huntsmen, a prince deeply in love with his fiancée, is summoned to the deathbed of his father, the king. The dying king makes his son promise to marry a specific princess from another land. Heartbroken but bound by duty, the new king agrees. When his true love hears of this, she is so aggrieved she nearly dies. Her father tells her she can wish for anything to feel better. She wishes for 11 girls who look exactly like her in face and figure. She dresses herself and these 11 doubles in identical huntsman outfits, and they ride to the young king's court, offering their services. The king, not recognizing his former love in her disguise, hires all 12 because they are such fine-looking fellows. But the king has a magical lion who knows all secrets. The lion tells the king, "Those aren't huntsmen, they are 12 girls." The king doesn't believe it, so the lion proposes a test. Scatter peas in the antique. Men walk firmly, the lion says, but girls will slip and slide on the peas. A servant, loyal to the huntsman, warns them. So, the next morning, the 12 huntsmen walk across the peas with a firm, heavy tread, not slipping once. The king tells the lion he was wrong. The lion proposes a second test. Bring spinning wheels into the room. Men won't notice them, but girls will be unable to resist looking at them. Again, the servant warns them. The next day, the 12 walk past the spinning wheels without even a glance. The king decides the lion is lying and grows very fond of his 12 huntsmen, taking them everywhere. One day, while hunting, news arrives that the king's arranged bride is approaching. Hearing this, the true fiancé, disguised as the head huntsman, faints and falls off her horse. The king rushes to help his favorite huntsman. He pulls off her glove and sees the ring he gave her long ago. Recognizing her face, his heart is touched. He kisses her and declares that she is his true wife and no other. He sends a message to the other princess, telling her to return home, for he who has found an old key has no need of a new one. They marry, and the lion is restored to favor, having told the truth after all. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.